Good morning, everyone. It's 9:06 a.m. It's September 10th, 2025, and I'm calling to order the meeting of the Camino Real Regional Mobility Authority Board of Directors. What I'll ask you, Raymond, is to do roll call and then to let us know if there are any public comments, please.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Wilson? Here. Ms. Ortega? Here. Mr. Palacios? Here. Mr. McElroy? Here. Ms. Bettis?
Here.
We do have a quorum and no public comments today.
Okay, thank you. Then I'll move on to item 2, adoption of the minutes for the RMA board meeting of August 13, 2025. Has everyone had a chance to review them?
Yes, I'll move to approve.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 3, discussion and action on board resolutions to authorize the following actions for the El Paso County Roadway Safety Program. A, execution of an interlocal agreement with El Paso County. B, award to the lowest responsible bidder and execution of a construction contract with such low bidder. C, execution of an amendment to work authorization number 1 with Gannett Fleming, Inc. And D, execution of an amendment to work authorization number 59 with Atkins Realis USA, Inc. And once you go through and explain everything, I'll ask that we take them all together.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning. Raymond Tejas, Executive Director of the Camino Real Regional Mobility Authority. So for this item, we've got a PowerPoint for you that I'll run you through pretty quickly. This is part of your backup, so there we go. Okay. So the usual agenda on an award. So this particular project is actually, we've broken it into different phases. So the intent of the project is to identify and design roadway safety improvements throughout the county. And so what we've done is we've created phase 1 based on the available funding, and we let this one back in July of this year. The construction budget comes from El Paso County's general funds. The RMA will provide general construction management over the project. We also did the oversight of the design services, which was provided by Gannett Fleming as part of our IDC program, and Atkins Realis is the GEC serving on this particular project. So here's some graphics to show you the locations for the various safety improvements that we'll be adding, and again, this is part of your backup. These are the 4 types of improvements that we're adding. We've got illumination, traffic signals, flashing beacon, and a 4-way stop at one location, and then signing and pavement markings at those additional locations. Role of the county and the RMA, those remain as usual. The county is the owner and the funding agency, and then we manage the design and the construction activities. Here's the timeline to date. Back in July, we advertised for construction contractors. We opened the bids on July 29th, and today we're proposing to move forward with an award and then authorizing staff to execute, to negotiate and execute a construction contract. So for this one, we think we can start in January. There are some materials that'll take a little bit of time to procure. So we do think that construction will start early in 2026. We think it'll take about 5 months, so we'll be done in in summer of 2025. These are the results. So we had 2 bids. One was incomplete, unfortunately, but the lowest responsible bidder came in just below the engineer's probable cost of construction, so that's good news. And that was Tri-State Electric, which we've partnered with them on various other projects as well. So we've got a nice working history with them. So with that in mind then, as it ties back to the agenda item, we do have a motion, or I would request a motion to approve the various board resolutions for this particular project. They would do everything that you see in those bullet points. First, you would authorize the execution of an amendment to the interlocal with the county that would provide funding for the RMA to pursue the construction activities. Second and third, we would select Tri-State Electric as the lowest responsible bidder and then authorize the staff to negotiate and execute a construction contract with them. The next would be to execute a work authorization amendment with Gannett Fleming. They are the designer of record, so we're seeking to bring them on for design services during construction. And then lastly, execute a work authorization amendment with Atkins as the construction management. They'll provide construction engineering and inspection as they normally do. So that's what you have before you under items 3A through D. Happy to answer any questions, but would recommend approval.
I'll move to approve.
Okay.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Before we move to the vote, I just, for the record, want to confirm that the firm we've selected here has a demonstrated good performance track record
Yes,
with
ma'am.
us? Okay.
Yeah, we've got a really strong record with this group.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
perfect. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. This is for items 3A through D, just for the record. And then moving on to number 4, discussion and action on board resolutions to authorize the execution of the following instruments as they relate to the Valley Chili Road project. A, amendment to the interlocal agreement with the Village of Vinton. B, memorandum of agreement with the Village of Vinton. C, construction contract with Jordan Foster Construction, LLC. D, amendment to work authorization number 2 with Hewitt Zollers, Inc. And E, amendment to work authorization number 40 with Atkins Realis USA, Inc.
Okay, for this one, we do have a graphic for you. We won't have a full PowerPoint deck, but we do have a visual that'll show you where it is. So we're talking about Valley Chili Road. This is in the Village of Vinton. It's 1.4 miles of roadway that connects Doniphan on the west side over to the eastbound frontage road of I-10. So to orient you, that's right where the Great American Steakhouse is, and there's a number of contracting agencies that office along this roadway. So this is an important roadway for Village of Vinton. We've partnered with them over the years to provide the design activities, and also we're moving now to construction. This one has quite a few separate actions. So just to go back in time, this one is an interesting one because we provided the design services for the roadway activity, but there's also water and wastewater construction activities that are being brought in. Those are being funded through the Village of Vinton after they sought funding from Congresswoman Escobar. So we're combining federal highway funds for the roadway and HUD grant funds for the water and wastewater. Village of Vinton, with support from El Paso Water, completed the design activities for the water and wastewater activities. And again, as I mentioned, we completed the design activities for the roadway. So we put those together, we put those out to bid, and we received a low bidder. The lowest responsible bidder for this one was Jordan Foster Construction for both.
And they're going to do the utilities
Yes,
as
ma'am.
well? Okay.
They'll do
And we're
both.
managing all of that
Yes,
as
and-
one project?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. So it's an efficient way to do it, but we did get held up on this. Some time ago, the board actually approved the award to Jordan Foster, but the water and wastewater activities got held up on the environmental part that was being processed through El Paso Water and the Village of Vinton. We've recently received federal approval for the water and wastewater, so now we're ready to advance the entire project. So that's why you're seeing these items before you. I will mention, we do need to come back, hopefully next month, with a revised work authorization to bring in the designer of record for the water and wastewater activities, which is Park Hill. We'll bring them in to do the design services during construction for that piece. Everything else is before you under item 4. So I'll run you through those now. The first item, 4A, is an amendment to the interlocal with the Village of Vinton. The intent there is for them to provide access to some cash up front for the RMA to manage the construction activity. So what we normally do with entities is we'll receive cash up front so that when the invoicing comes in, we make those payments, seek reimbursement from the federal agency. Usually, in this case, it'll be Federal Highway through TxDOT and HUD, and then we receive those reimbursements and use it almost as a line of credit. So that's item 4A. 4B is a unique one. We're required to execute a memorandum of agreement with the Village of Vinton because we are in the water and wastewater piece, we are considered a subrecipient for the HUD funds. So that's what item 4B is. 4C is the construction contract with Jordan Foster Construction, and you'll note that's for just over $11 million. That is for both the roadway and the water and wastewater pieces. We think that's going to take them about 25 months for completion. Item 4D then is an amendment to work authorization number 2 with Hewitt Zollers. They are the designer of record for the roadway, and we're bringing them on to handle the design services during construction under 4D. And lastly, 4E is the work authorization number 40 amendment with Atkins-Reales to manage the construction activities overall. So that's what I have for you under item 4. Happy to answer any questions, but would recommend approval.
Any questions?
No questions. I move to approve.
So we have a motion and second. And just before we vote on it, I really appreciate all the work you all have done to reach out to these smaller jurisdictions and to develop relationships with them and help them move some of these projects along. I really think that is becoming kind of a trademark of this authority, that we've really helped the region advance infrastructure that previously was really difficult to do just because of capacity issues. So I'm excited that this is a pretty significant project, so I'm really excited about that. If there's no other discussion, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to item 5, presentation, discussion, and action on a board resolution authorizing a procurement for construction of Phase 1 and Phase 2 of the Alamo Alto Trail project.
Okay, we've got a quick PowerPoint for you on this one. This is what we're seeking authority to advertise this particular project. This is a project that we've partnered with the county on. Similar agenda. Here are the project details. This also is part of your backup, so I'll go through this relatively quickly. Alamo Alto Trail is a segment of the Paso Norte Trail system that the Paso Norte Health Foundation is putting together. Roughly 60-plus miles worth of trails from county line to county line. The Alamo Alto Trail is a segment that consists of 3 different phases so far down in the lower valley. Phase 1 is the trail system within Fabens, Texas. Phase 2 is the trail section within Tornillo. I would mention we're also working with the county on Phase 3, which would then connect Fabens and Tornillo. So a lot of interconnectivity there. I would also mention actually for Phase 2 in Tornillo, we had previously completed the O.T. Smith Trail, which runs from Tornillo north up towards I-10, and this Phase 2 connects to that as well. So lots of connectivity that we're putting together down in the lower valley. Very excited for this project. So we're looking to let this in winter of 2025. This one will include federal and county funds. The RMA will manage the construction. We are currently managing the design for this particular project. We're using our IDC program, specifically AECOM, to complete the design activities, and Atkins-Reales is the oversight GEC team for this one. Here's a visual to show you what we're talking about. The bubble on the left is Fabens, and that's the trail that we're putting together for Phase 1. On the right is Tornillo, and then, as I mentioned, in between is Phase 3, which would connect the 2 communities. So that'll come later. Again, and I think we touched on this, the 2 phases would complete really a shared use path and a trail. So you'll see some of those details there. And I mentioned Phase 3 as well. Roles of the county and the RMA remain the same. I should have mentioned also we have a representative here from the county if you have any questions of them. Here's the timeline we're proposing. So we're hoping to get approval to advertise today, and then we would advertise in November of this year and open in December, and then come back to you in January for award. So these are obviously preliminary, but that's what we're looking to do. If we meet those dates, then we think we could start as soon as February. It would take about 12 months to complete, so we'd be done in winter of 27. So with that, the request here is for a motion to authorize the execution of a board resolution that would authorize me to issue 1 or more construction lettings for Phase 1 and 2 of Alamo Alto Trail.
Thank you. Any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a motion and second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to item 6, discussion and action on board resolutions authorizing the execution of the following amendments as they relate to the Fabens Airport T-Hangar Improvements Project. A, work authorization number 1.1 with Hewitt Zollers, Inc., and B, work authorization number 36 with Atkins-Reales USA, Inc.
Okay, this is part of the Fabens initiatives that we've been developing in partnership with El Paso County. This one is for the design and construction of T-hangars out there. We had completed design using Hewitt-Zollars as part of our IDC program. We put that out on the street last year, but the bids came in much higher than the available project budget. So what we're doing is we're putting together a repackage and putting it back out on the street. The county has done some research and identified similar requests for T-hangers throughout the country and has identified some areas where we think we can bring down the cost. So that's what you see here, an amendment under under 6A with Hewitt-Zollars to repackage the procurement for a rebid, and under 6B, Atkins would provide the oversight for that rebid process. So subject to your questions, I would recommend approval of this item as well.
Yes.
In changing the, I guess, the requirements, how is it going to change the way it was initially presented where the cost was too high?
Let me ask Edgar Fino from our GEC team to get into the details.
Good morning, Madam Chair, board members, Edgar Fino, Atkins Reales, GEC. So the overall concept for the T-hangers is by bays, and there's 10 bays per storage unit or lot, and I believe we have 50. So the first go round, we did the full 50, and that came in, like Raymond mentioned, too high in regards to the quote. So we're going to reduce that scope as far as the number of bays to bid out. So basically, we're going to phase this project in. The second item is El Paso County did some homework, and they researched previous bid openings by other counties, and they found in Stafford, Phoenix, a T-hanger project with a different type of vendor. And the vendor has a lot to do with the cost. Our first low bidder, I think the vendor was out of North Carolina. And this vendor in Stafford is from where? Ohio. So we reached out to that vendor, and they're interested, and we're going to update the plans in regards to identifying the vendors. It's still not sole source. It's going to have three options that the contractors or the primes can go out and reach to these vendors to provide them a quote. So that's the changes that we've made to make this more attractive. We're going to reduce the scope and not have so many ad alternates, and then identify a vendor that came in at a good quote on an Arizona project.
So it sounds like the project will be the same, it's just going to be done a little bit different to come within the cost.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
So I understand that multiple contractors can go to the same, let's say it's a steel building manufacturer. They can all go to the same steel building manufacturer and get their own quotes, right? But if they all go to the same steel building manufacturer, how are you, tell me there are multiple manufacturers of whatever hanger system you're looking for, so that we don't get into any sole source issues.
And there is multiple vendors in regards to fabricating T-hangers.
Okay.
So they'll get a list.
Well, we're going to identify the ones that we've talked to, or
Okay.
Hewitt-Zollars has talked to in regards to their research. But they can use
But they
someone
can
similar.
find somebody else if they
Correct.
find one we don't know about.
Yes.
Okay,
I don't have any more questions.
all right. Any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Move
So
to-
move.
Second.
We have a motion and second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to item 7, discussion and action on a board resolution authorizing the execution of an amendment to work authorization number 551 with Atkins Reales USA, Inc. for the acquisition of certain properties for the Montwood Drive Extension Project.
This is a follow-up from last month. As you may recall, we received authorization to pursue eminent domain on a potential of up to three parcels on this particular project. So what you're seeing under item 7 then is an amendment to the Atkins Reales work authorization that would provide support if necessary. So, for example, if we needed to reappraise any of those parcels, that sort of thing, that's what you're seeing under item 7. So I would recommend approval.
I have a quick question. Are these all of these properties at a point where someone tried to negotiate before, so you're having to use eminent domain?
So we are still in the negotiation process. What we did last month, and then with this one, is just in case we have to advance it to eminent domain. So we still have I think actually I should say, on one of them, we're fairly certain we're going to eminent domain. On the other two, which is one owner, I'd like to try one more thing and try to avoid eminent domain if possible.
Okay.
I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
We have a motion and second. All in favor? Aye.
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 Motion passes. Item 8, presentation and discussion on a change order recently approved by the Executive Director for the Fabens Airport Hangars Project.
Okay, we've got a short PowerPoint for you on this one as well. This is the usual presentation I give you all if I execute a change order over the prior month, and there was one this last month, and it deals with the Fabens Hangar Expansion Project. This is part of your backup, so I'll go through this pretty quickly. These are all of the prior change orders. The last one is a swap out requested by the county for new TVs and a projector install. So that's for, I believe it's for the classroom? For the classroom that's being added to this particular hangar. So you see an addition of just under $5,000. Our total change order amount is less than 4%, so we're still looking pretty good on that. No request for action here. This is just for informational purposes only.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. So then we'll move to item 9, presentation, update, and discussion on the following programs or projects: the FY25 annual audit, B, Pelicano Drive widening project, and C, the 2013 El Paso County Comprehensive Mobility Plan.
Good morning, Robert Suter, Director of Finance. For the record, last month the board approved an engagement letter with our external auditor, Gibson Ehrlich Patterson. Mr. Tejas and I had our entrance meeting with them last week. We've already started some of the work. We'll keep you apprised if anything changes with timeline or anything like that, but our current timeline is going to be similar to what we did last year, Ms. Wilson, where we met in late January. So we pushed our original board meeting of the second Wednesday to the fourth Wednesday, and that was to accommodate the city's timeline so that we can approve our audit timely to get it to the city so they can incorporate it because we're a component unit of the city. When we did that, we also canceled the February meeting. So most likely we will need to do something similar to that again, so I just want to put that on your radar. For the January meeting, we probably won't meet the second Wednesday. We may meet the third Wednesday or some other day in that, but I wanted to make you all aware of that.
Let's make sure when we get to the November, December meeting that we tie down the date so we can assure that people are available.
Yes, ma'am. Sure, we'll do that. And then my last update is that the Finance Committee will not be able to meet a quorum prior to the October board meeting. So we've spoken with the chair, and we'll plan on taking the quarterly items we would normally take for October to the November. We'll have a November meeting and then bring that to the November board meeting. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, for item 9B, that's Pelicano. Just a brief update for you all. No request to go into executive session for this item. Since last month, we've executed all the agreements, and I can't remember where we were last month exactly, but all agreements are executed. They're all in place. We've received all of the insurance requirements from the contractor through the surety. So all of that is in place. The contractor has done a walkthrough with all of the important stakeholders, the county, everybody was involved in that walkthrough. And then this Friday, we are having the project kickoff meeting as well. So that will technically start the project. The project is about 1 year of construction activities for phase 1, so that will start this Friday. And I think that's all I have for you. I have been working with the county on a press release, so I should get the final press release from them today, and I think we've got it where we want it. And Ms. Wilson, I just got a note from the county this morning asking for a follow-up meeting, so I'll work with you on scheduling that follow-up Teams call with the county.
Do we have to do it like today?
I'm not sure. I'll check with them and we'll
Right.
get some times.
Okay.
But that's about it. We're on the verge of construction activities beginning.
Okay, why don't you do your project kickoff? Are we going to do like cards to the owners out in the area, information like update or something?
Yes,
like
ma'am.
we talked about?
We talked about issuing a postcard,
Yeah.
And so we've got, we're just signing our agreement with the outreach group that we've been talking
Okay.
about. So that's, should be executed hopefully before the end of this week, at which point their first task would be to put that postcard together. And the county's supposed to provide us the addresses so that we
Yeah.
can populate those fields.
Yeah, I don't want to send it out until we've done the kickoff, and we've got
Agreed.
like a really good, like, sense of the lay of the land as it relates to timeline, work, disruption, whatever.
Agreed, yes, ma'am.
A link where they can check on project status or something,
Yes, ma'am.
that type of thing.
So
Okay.
that will be, agreed, that will go out after the
Okay.
pre-con.
And then the second phase of the design work for the balance, is that going to get started anytime soon?
So the design work is underway already,
Okay, good.
and we're anticipating those final design plans in hand late November, perhaps early December.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am, so that's
That would be
underway.
the basis for us to go back to the surety to start those discussions
That's exactly right,
about
because
what they
at
have
that
to
point,
pay.
that's right, they'll know, we will
Good.
know their total exposure at that
Okay.
point.
Did you have questions?
No, you asked mine.
Any other questions?
So if there are no additional questions, then item 9C is the 2013 County Comprehensive Mobility Plan. We include that as part of your backup. We're happy to answer any questions, but I won't walk you through that. So
Has the
that's-
planning committee had any updates from the MPO?
We met with them on their bridges plan.
Mm-hmm.
And when we met, we talked about giving them a little bit of time to, because there was, like, the city was working on its own deal. You saw the county just came out with their own plan for Tornillo, or announcement of a plan for Tornillo. So we agreed to give them a little time and then maybe check in quarterly to see how that plan is going. I need to set up the next meeting where we want to get a presentation on some of the smaller community stuff, like the Vinton project that we had today.
Yeah, I think that's a better forum because you can really delve and spend more time than coming here and having only like 10 or 10 minutes. I think we just need to continue to watch what's going on with the money and how that's going to really impact us and the projects that we've got in the queue. I'd appreciate that. Okay, so with that, then we'll move to item 10, and that's the presentation on the 89th Texas Legislative Session.
Okay, online, we've got Brian. There
Hi,
we go.
Brian.
Brian O'Reilly. He's part of our outside attorney group, and he's part of what their activities are each session is to monitor legislation as it relates to transportation in the then current session. So Brian, we'll ask you to brief us on what happened.
Hey, good morning, Madam Chair and Board. Brian O'Reilly, I serve as outside general counsel to the RMA. Our firm has represented the RMA since its inception. And yeah, as Raymond said, each session we track legislation that impacts the RMA, specifically transportation issues, but also Open Meetings Act, Public Information Act, all the local impact, whatever would impact a local government that Raymond would need to be in compliance with. And so this session, when we come and typically provide this presentation to you on what happened, there's in the past usually some media issues to discuss and a lot of funding or controversial issues. But this session was relatively quiet into RMA type issues. There were some typical anti-tolling bills that were heard but didn't really move. And I know that doesn't affect the Camino Real RMA, but it's just something that we would be tracking. And overall, like I said, it was very quiet. I mean, in 2013, Proposition 1 was passed, which was enabling legislation for oil and gas severance taxes. You had Proposition 7 in 2015. Then you had those extensions in 2019, 2021. The Mobility Fund was reopened. There was, momentum each session for funding, and then this session it was just kind of a back burner issue. Some items to note, I think, just for is interesting is that for TxDOT's budget, for instance, in SB1, they have about $40 billion in total funding for the biennium. It's a $2.7 billion increase from the prior biennium, which is about 7%. There's discussion that that's likely not going to even cover inflation, so we're going to have to see how that goes on the funding side. Proposition 1, which I said was passed in 2013, that's a combination of the oil and gas severance taxes that are dedicated to transportation funding. That's set at $8 billion, but there's some concern on the volatility of that funding source. And Proposition 7, the sales tax and vehicle sales tax dedication from 2015, that's set at just under $7.5 billion for the biennium. What's interesting is these Proposition 1 and 7 revenues now, they're almost 45% of TxDOT's budget, which is more than the gas tax, which surprisingly, which has always been the main funding source for TxDOT. So, that's how TxDOT's going to be funded over the next 2 years, and we'll have to kind of just see how that plays out. If lettings slow down, if it seems like there's a funding dry up, then there'll be discussions on alternative means, and that's kind of when a lot of discussion comes back with RMA's involvement and other local governments and how they're going to provide funding. So I expect that this may be the last session that is a relatively quiet one. It might start to ramp up more in the future, but we'll have to see. One thing, again, not much to know, but one specific bill that passed that you might be interested in is SB 1555 by Senator Nichols, who is the chairman of the Transportation Committee in the Senate, has been around for decades, was a commissioner at TxDOT, major force in transportation policy. He's announced that he is not running again for re-election. So that's going to be another big change that we're going to see in the future at the legislative level. But anyway, his legislation, it provides local governments grants for rail roadway and rail pedestrian grade separations. It sets up a program that's going to be administered by a TxDOT, and they've dedicated $250 million to this, where counties and local entities like the RMA are eligible to receive funds from this to address this solution for these rail backups at grade crossings. It's a big issue for the ports. They were big supporters of this. I don't really know how much this impacts the areas of El Paso, but San Antonio has lots of problems with this, and so it's just something that local governments are starting to look at. It's a small funding source, but it's a beginning. And I guess for El Paso, what didn't pass and wasn't even filed for El Paso is like an optional increase to the optional vehicle registration fee revenues that we've seen from El Paso at least seek the county in the past. Only 3 bills this session were filed on that. Usually there's a lot more local governments seeking that authority or to increase their authority. Bexar County, San Antonio tried to increase their $10 fee that you receive as well to $20, and we're unsuccessful in those efforts. It's pretty much the same story as every other past session. In the future, I do think that they're going to take a shot at that again. I'm not sure what the desire is in El Paso, but that's something to look in the future. I think there's going to be discussions about increasing the Proposition 7 funding, which will require a constitutional amendment. Those are some of the issues I see coming forward next session. And then, other than that, there's a number of Open Meetings Act, Public Information Act bills that just Raymond needs to be aware of for administration purposes of the RMA. But I think that it's short and sweet, but this kind of covers the session. Are there any questions or?
I would just mention Weiler as well, right?
Weiler, yeah. So Weiler was earmarked $7 million, right, Raymond?
That's right.
Yeah, $7 million in the supplemental appropriations bill, and that came from a $60 million pot that was allocated to I think over about 30 something parks around the state, and so the $7 million I think is the largest amount of all of those parks that were allocated, that were broken out of that 60 million, if I'm correct. So.
Yeah, and that one I'm hoping to bring to you all next month. We'll do an amendment with Texas Parks and Wildlife, which would allow us to access the 7 million so that we could now advance to the procurement of the design and construction of the tram itself. So as you know, phase 1 is underway, a lot of prep work. The loop road is being constructed right now. We're about 50% complete on that one. And then this next infusion of 7 million will allow us to design and construct the tram. And then in the next session, our delegation is saying that they'll pursue the remaining funds necessary for the visitor center on the base station and the aerial station as well. So that would be the third piece.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Sure.
So item 11 is the presentation of required training on ethics and the requirements of the RMA internal compliance program.
Okay, so this one, we also have Brian here with us. He's going to run us through a required training session that we have to do every now and again. Brian, if you want to pull up your PowerPoint, I think it'd be more efficient.
Yeah, let me see if I can get this going.
There we go.
Is this in presentation mode or is that, sorry, I'm not really,
Yeah, we can see the rest, but I think that'll work if you want to
works,
run with
okay. Yeah, okay, so this is here for providing, we do this every 2 years, and actually usually in conjunction with a legislative update, to provide the board members and the staff a review and training on your ethics and internal compliance program. So the RMA, this program was adopted in 2009, and it's required of all RMAs and entities that receive financial assistance from TxDOT. It's designed to detect and prevent violations of law and regulations and ethical standards, and it's applicable to all of you board members, officers, and the employees of the RMA. We have to do this periodically, as I said, and it's required of everyone, all the board members and employees. There's not a specific timeline to do this, but every 2 years is the standard practice, and this is what we were able to certify to TxDOT. The goal here, what we'll go through, it's probably about 10 to 15 minutes. We're going to go over your policy, and you're going to become familiar with other documents of the RMA, the bylaws, your conflict policies, your procurement policies, retention policies, drug and alcohol policy, which are all available on your website, and I think probably were provided to you on onboarding. So we'll get into it. Here are the topics that we're going to go over today. And I think a lot of you probably have either sat through this, maybe have served in other roles and are probably familiar with a lot of these. Happy to answer questions at the end, or you're always welcome to reach out to me too. So conflict of interest. So this is in the Transportation Code applicable to RMAs. Board members, you may not accept employment or engage in a business activity that might induce disclosure of confidential information. You may not accept employment or compensation that might impair your independence of judgment. You may not make investments that could create a conflict between your private interest and that of the RMA. You may not have a personal interest in an RMA contract, or be employed by or own or control more than 10% interest in a business entity that is regulated by or receives money from TxDOT or the RMA. And this also applies to your spouse. You may not use or receive a substantial amounts of goods or services or money from TxDOT or the RMA. Again, it also applies to your spouse. Now, there are some specific obligations under Chapter 171 and Chapter 176 of the Local Government Code that we need to talk about. This will cover the next two or three slides. Under Chapter 171, you have to file an affidavit and abstain from participation in a matter that could have a special economic effect on a business entity or real property in which you have a substantial interest. Now, the special economic effect and that term substantial interest have specific meanings. I'll go over those in a second. And then under Chapter 176, you have to file a conflict disclosure statement to disclose a business relationship or receipt of a gift from a vendor or potential vendor. And again, we'll go over when those are triggered. So here under Chapter 171, so I'll hit the last bullet point first. This is important that you file this affidavit before a vote or decision and abstain from further participation. So it's important for you to review your board packets before you come to the meeting, see what's on the agenda, see if anything is applicable, because after the fact could create issues. So you need to be aware of this beforehand. It applies, as I said, these matters that with a business entity or real property in which you have a substantial interest, and it will create a special economic effect on that entity or the property. So substantial interest, what is that? In a business entity, it means you own 10% or more of the shares, 10% or $15,000 or more of the fair market value of the entity, or receipt of funds that exceed 10% of your prior year's income. Substantial interest in real property means ownership interest with a fair market value of $2,500 or more. And special economic effect, so that means an effect distinguishable from the effect on the general public. So an example, the RMA is constructing a roadway, limited access roadway, and an exit is going to be designed that will provide access to your property that you have a substantial interest in. That's a special economic effect distinguishable from the general public. It can come in all kinds of forms. So it, generally case by case, just if you have any questions, you just come to Raymond or myself, and when we'll talk through it. And again, this extends to interest held by first-degree relatives. Now, Chapter 176. This one is where you have to file a conflict disclosure if you or your family member has an employment or other business relationship with a vendor that results in receipt of taxable income of $2,500 or more the prior year. If you accept one or more gifts from a vendor with an aggregate value of $100 or more than the prior year, or have a family relationship with a vendor. And a vendor here is a person or entity who enters or seeks to enter into a contract with the RMA. So unlike the prior statement under Chapter 171, this one must be filed within 7 business days of becoming aware of the facts requiring the filing. So again, any question, just come to us and we'll talk through it and just decide whether this is applicable. Okay. So those are the statements that you need to look for when you're contracting with vendors. Now, gifts and honoraries. So board members, you may not accept a gift, favor, or benefit that might reasonably influence you in the discharge of your official duty if it's being offered to attempt to influence you from a potential vendor during a pending procurement or is offered as an honorarium for appearing at a conference. Now, accepting a gift from a potential vendor during probably you shouldn't even be talking to potential vendors during pending procurement, but certainly not accepting a gift or favor or benefit. Moving on with board members, what you can accept is reimbursement from the RMA for actual expenses incurred and performance of your duties, gifts from family members or friends, independent of the official status with the RMA, and certain transportation and lodging and meals accepted as a guest. Again, acceptance of a gift subject to conflict of interest laws. Best is to just seek advice from Raymond or myself. Use of RMA property. It's just standard computers and software, phones, anything owned or leased by the RMA should be used for official RMA business. Lost and stolen property must be reported immediately. All right, moving on to public information. So this is one that, it can always be an issue. Any communication regarding RMA business is subject to the Public Information Act. It's a public entity, you're a public servant, anything relating to it can be subject to disclosure under the Act. In addition to discovery of litigation. It doesn't matter if it's a text message, if it's written on paper, email, it's the medium, it's a government record created in discussing public business. Avoid using personal accounts if you can, or personal devices for RMA business, and that's primarily Robert and Raymond. Just having separate devices and using the city's email address. For board members, if you you're using your personal email address, I'd recommend segregating communications regarding RMA business. If there's a request, it's easier to identify those if you're keeping them separate. And then preserve all communications on personal devices until they've been forwarded and observed litigation holds that may come up. Open Meetings Act, the main thing, I think a very important thing, at least for board members here, is avoid walking quorum. So walking quorum, it's a successive one-on-one meetings with other board members. So one of you bounces an idea off another, and it goes to another. It's it's like a telephone, but then all of you together constitute a quorum. That violates the Open Meetings Act. Don't send text or emails or other electronic communications during an open meeting. Certainly use caution when replying all, especially if it contains all board members. Typically recommend BCCing board members when there's something sent to everyone. Do not participate in a meeting that hasn't been properly called, or a closed session that's not authorized. And be aware that you can be held criminally liable for certain violations of the Open Meetings Act. And I believe as part of your onboarding, you're required to take the AG's training course on this in the Public Information Act, which has some information, more details on that. Ethics, personal financial statement, reminder that you have to file this annually with the Ethics Commission. Electronic filing is required. I think they actually might have revised that. We can submit a paper copy. I highly recommend the electronic filing. I'm sure all of you do that. It's simpler and quicker. It covers the financial activity for the prior year. It's due April 30th, but you can request extensions. But certainly do not miss that deadline, because there are fines and it can create issues. Compliance standards and procedure. So here, suspected violation of law or RMA policies must be reported immediately to Raymond or the chair. The ED or the chair will take and enforce appropriate remedial measures or sanctions, and retaliation for reporting suspected violations will not be tolerated. And that is the conclusion of the training. Here's my contact info, and obviously, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or go through Raymond. And that concludes the training.
Thank you very much. Any questions of Brian on anything that we've covered? Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. So there's no need for an executive session?
No, ma'am.
You mentioned, you sent out two things to the board just before we recess. One was on the scope for the communications outreach contract. Everyone had a chance to review, I hope, and provide your feedback. And then the second was on the project manager
Yes, ma'am.
position scope. Everyone had a chance to review that as well, provide feedback? Okay, I just want to make sure so that he can move forward with those. If there's no other business, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
Second.
So we have a motion and second. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
It is 9:50 a.m. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for your time today.
Thank you.
We'll see you all. Have a good day. See you.